How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to Boylai Hobby Time. I was looking at this astronaut the other day and I thought to myself, this would go really well with some gold miners. So I went to the store and I bought a box. All they had were the California gold miners. I'm not really sure what makes them California gold miners as opposed to any other kind of gold miner, but I suppose that doesn't really matter. The plastic was pretty slippery though, so I had to spend quite a few minutes on the floor looking for pieces I had dropped. I saved these pieces from a Kinder Joy egg, which is not to be confused with a Kinder Surprise egg. Kinder Surprise eggs are actually illegal in America because the FDA is afraid that kids will have too much fun, or that they'll choke on the toy inside. It's one of the two. Either way, it's a bummer because the Kinder Surprise eggs are pretty awesome. I had a lot of fun with them growing up. But for all of my American friends, you can sleep easy at night because you are far less likely to die from a Kinder Egg toy than the rest of the world. In building this structure, I used a lot of balsa wood and basswood, as well as some sprue pieces, some plastic mesh, and a bunch of little pieces and bits from other builds. To age the wood, I used this wire brush to scratch and create more of an obvious grain. I split all the panels down to make them a little bit closer to the scale I was working with. The idea that I had for this structure was somewhere between like a Borderlands feel, like sci-fi-esque, with real-world mining elements from like a mining outpost in the 1800s. In Colorado, we have a lot of abandoned mines up in the mountains, and those have always been really inspirational for me for stories or art or photographs. There's just something really romantic about them. I didn't really know where I was going next with this build. I kind of built it on the fly the whole time, which was a lot of fun for me. And I'm definitely going to be doing more stuff like this in the future. I have been inspired by a few wargame creators out there. I'll put a list below of a few of my favorites. They build a lot of stuff like this, but it is wargame terrain. And I do enjoy building that stuff too, but something about dioramas is nice because it doesn't have to be playable. It can just be looked at. I also like the smaller scale a little better. I think building it for me is a little more fun. After I had assembled all 4 of the walls, I glued it in place and put a little lid on it. And then I started adding some little greeblies, bits and pieces to add visual interest, including guitar string, of course. This is quickly becoming one of my favorite things to work with. I do play guitar as well, so I have a bunch of strings that I will probably never use sitting around. And then I made a little mine cart track. I'm not sure what this tank is for. I think this tank is for maybe some kind of mining liquid. I don't know. Let me know what you think it's for. I then cut out some pieces of styrofoam to build up the landscape, stacked up a few layers, and I carved out the mine shaft itself. I did burn my finger just then when I scraped away the hot glue. Don't worry, my finger was fine, just a little burned. I wanted to have some platforms connecting the upper level to the lower level with a staircase between. And of course the little wooden covering over the mineshaft entrance. Then I glued the minecart and the rail in place. Next, it was time to move on to the water tower that sits on top of the building. I used a roll of printer receipt paper, glued on some wood, and then I used some thin styrene, and I did that trick that you curl ribbons with by scratching it with your nail to get it to curl up. And then I glued one on the top and the bottom to create those little bands. There's probably a technical term for them. If you know, go ahead and leave a comment. I glued that all together, added a few little final touches before applying the Mod Podge plaster mix. This will help protect it from the spray paint so it doesn't melt the foam. It's always a bummer when you get this far into a project and then you spray paint it and it melts. Once all of those were in place, I primed it. Using a gray and then a white primer, I gave everything a zenithal highlight. Then I began painting. For all the vertical rock surfaces, I applied a brown and a black wash. For all the dirt, I applied a dusty tan color. I gave a dry brush of that same color to the rocks once they had dried. The zenithal highlight had established the values of all of the surfaces. So I went over it with a wash pretty loosely, then added a few of the details like the metal things. Then I dusted on some other pigments and weathering and some rust, of course. Once that was done, I moved on to the figures. The loose idea that I have for this world so far is that it is some kind of cross between actual cowboy times and space travel. These two astronauts are Pinkertons who have traveled to this distant mining outpost to solicit their protective services to the owner. The Pinkertons were a private law enforcement and detective agency that was prominent during the Cowboy era. They were pretty messed up though, in a lot of ways. A lot of interesting history though. If you don't know about them, you should go look them up. The last thing to do was to glue the figures in place and paint the sides black. And I call it good. That is it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Have a great week, everyone. I will see you next time.